Hi, Hanja's friends. North Korea was a part of the splitting of the Korean Peninsula in the Second World War. Japan's defeat by the Allies at that time ended its 35-year occupation of the Korean Peninsula. After the surrender of Japanese forces, Korean Peninsula was handed over to the Allies. The North was under Soviet occupation, and the South under American occupation. They could never agree on a unified Korean peninsula. The North, with Soviet support, refused to participate in United Nations supervised elections. Until finally, two governments emerged, North Korea supported by the Soviets in the north, and South Korea in the south supported by the United States. Soviet, at the time led by Joseph Stalin, appointed Kim Il-sung as leader of North Korea. They proclaimed the official establishment of the state of North Korea on September 9, 1948. Since then, conflicts and tensions between the two new countries have continued. In 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea. An action that becomes the starting point the outbreak of civil war between the two countries until 1953. The war ended in a ceasefire agreement without South Korea's participation, so the two countries are technically still at war with each other to this day. The ongoing conflict and tension between the two countries after the Civil War inspired North Korean leader Kim Il-sung to create Juche, a theory of self-reliance, which was later formally adopted as the state ideology. Applying three principles that must be applied, namely political independence, economic independence and military autonomy. This ideology certainly cannot be separated from the influence of Soviet that is so inherent in North Korea. It is a variant of Marxism-Leninism, which has been adapted into the country's national culture. Juche made North Korea a very closed country to foreign countries. It also becomes a tool to maintain the regime, so that it has absolute power over the state, and has a strong grip on internal politics. The Juche doctrine positioned the Kim dynasty as perfect beings, almost on par with God. Kim Il-sung is the God who created mankind. Everything he said was an order to be carried out. Kim Il-sung's birth marked the beginning of the Juche calendar year, which began in 1912. Juche's ideology proved effective. When Soviet and China clashed and came into conflict in 1956, North Korea was able to remain neutral and impartial. Kim Il-sung isolated North Korea from the global geopolitical arena. It closes the door of globalization, and rejects dependence on foreign parties. However, the end of the Cold War, which then toppled Soviet and dissolved the Eastern Bloc, became a disaster for North Korea. It lost a major source of aid and trading partner, following the collapse of Soviet Union. The economic crisis forced North Korea to receive aid for the first time from South Korea, the United States and United Nations. When Kim Il-sung died on July 8, 1994, Kim Jong-il, his son, took his place as supreme leader. It was he who initiated the Songun policy. Policies that prioritize the military in economic development and people's lives. He also applies the principle of isolationism in international relations more strictly. North Korea has the most centralized and isolated command economy in the world. The high military budget, especially for the ambition of the nuclear program, plus the failure of agricultural produce, quickly brought North Korea down. With only 15% of cultivated land, low yields due to traditional farming practices, and frequent flooding due to excessive deforestation, all of this has left more than 3 million people starving since 1994. With only 15% of cultivated land, low yields due to traditional farming practices, and frequent flooding due to excessive deforestation, all of this has left more than 3 million people starving since 1994. Moreover, the United States surveillance is getting tighter against the illicit network of drugs, cigarettes, counterfeit money, and gambling businesses run by North Korea, eliminating the income they have relied on for a long time. The United States, at that time, was aggressively hostile to and classifying North Korea as an axis of evil, with Iran and Iraq. The United States, at that time, was aggressively hostile to and classifying North Korea as an axis of evil, with Iran and Iraq. On December 17, 2011, Kim Jong-il died. Kim Jong-un, his son, was announced as the successor to the supreme power of North Korea. He became one of the youngest heads of state in the world at that time. Since the beginning of his reign, Kim Jong-un has made many controversial policies. If his late grandfather and father chose to imprison their enemies and opponents, Kim Jong-un preferred to execute them. He also designed the cult of personality to be more extreme. Statues of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il scattered in every corner of the city, including the image of His Majesty and super great figure through massive propaganda. The hope for a more open economic policy was lost. He was worried that openness would endanger his power. North Korea has begun to strain relations with China, its main ally and supporter of its country, following the establishment of China's new partnership with South Korea. This makes North Korea more isolated, while the people's economy is getting worse. People struggle to survive and trade on the black market, because the official economy is barely functioning. People are forced to do whatever it takes to meet the needs of the families. They are forced to steal, collect edible grass and plants, take dangerous routes to China, and even carry out cannibalistic activities on the black market. North Korea is becoming increasingly difficult for foreigners to visit. Even if there are foreign tourists who visit, the movements will be closely monitored and regulated while they are there. Is North Korea on the verge of collapse? Will the Kim dynasty, which has ruled absolute for 74 years, end soon? Predictions of the collapse of North Korea have appeared for a long time, even predicted to collapse after the end of the Civil War in 1953. Then it was predicted to collapse when famine hit and the nation's founding father, Kim Il-sung, died in 1994. It was also predicted to collapse when Kim Jong-il died in 2011, who had controlled the country since 1994. And all these predictions did not come true. Is the prediction this time, following the news of Kim Jong-un's illness, and the worsening of the country's economy, North Korea will soon collapse? The answer cannot be ascertained. Even though North Korea's political situation is currently volatile, and economic conditions are deteriorating, there are a number of external factors that will prevent the country's collapse. Many countries will be threatened with their interests if there is an extreme change in North Korea. China has always wanted North Korea to survive because it can be used as a buffer from Western powers, especially the United States. The collapse of North Korea will lead to the unification of the Korean Peninsula, under the leadership of South Korea, controlled by the United States. Furthermore, it is confirmed that the United States military base will be built near the Chinese border. And it is a serious threat to China's national security. The flow of millions of uneducated and unskilled refugees across China's borders will be a heavy national burden, at a time when China still has to solve similar problems today. For reasons similar to China, South Korea does not want the collapse of North Korea or any possible unification. It will erode and stop the pace of the national economy. North Korea's natural and human resources will not be worth the burden South Korea bears. It would be difficult to protect the influx of refugees, and how to set up an emergency administrative headquarters in North Korea. It was not easy to mobilize the large number of troops needed to stabilize North Korea. Although the United States and South Korea have prepared a contingency plan, Plan 5029, if the collapse of North Korea occurs. The plan was meant to secure the border and secure North Korea's nuclear weapons. But all planning is high risk. When and on what indicators it must be run. If America make a wrong move, the impact of the destruction will be enormous. It is not an easy matter to be involved in North Korea's internal power struggle, especially since it is certain that it will then face open conflict with China and Russia. In fact, the opportunity for change in North Korea for the better is only possible when it emerges from North Korea's own internal strength. But is there an internal force that is able and is trying to do it? It can be sure. Thanks for watching.